Hello, today we're going to look at this Wi-Fi router, or otherwise sold on Amazon as a Wi-Fi router range extender booster mini N300 megabits with external antennas and 2 Ethernet port router repeater access point with network extender with WPS UK plug. So it costs an entire £16.99 on Amazon, and here it is. It's basically a really standard thing, wireless router that could also be in just repeater mode, or what's the other one, access point mode as well, because that's super easy. So it comes in quite a nice box. That's the device itself. Indeed, it has 2 aerials. Let's see what else is within the box. Comes with 1 Ethernet cable. Let's just see whether it's got all of the connections in the Ethernet cable. It does, so that will go at gigabit speed. And comes with an instruction manual as well, which is quite comprehensive. Normally these kind of things comes with an instruction manual which is about that size and double-sided, but no, this has got loads of it, although multiple languages on the other pages. So I will plug it in a minute and go through what it looks like on a computer. But there's the device itself. Not sure how you pronounce that brand. Aigital, like D-I-G-I-T-A-L, but A instead. Aigital, maybe. I was quite surprised to see there's a little plastic stop on the aerial to stop you twiddling it 360 degrees and breaking the wires that are in it, so there's a limit there, a stop on each side. 2 aerials, and can go that way as well. WPS button, and on the underside a physical switch, which is quite nice. 2 LAN ports, or possibly 2 LAN ports if it's in repeater mode or access point mode, maybe, not sure, and a WAN port if it's in routing mode. A reset, so factory reset button on the side, and the nice thing, there's lots of these things on Amazon, and what I wanted was one with lots of ventilation. So there's ventilation there, ventilation there, ventilation there. So all of the older ones of these just kind of cook themselves and then go wrong because they've got no ventilation. This one looks like it might have a sensible amount of ventilation and may be quite reliable. MAC address on the sticker on the back, and a hard-coded username and password of just admin. So there we go, that's the device itself. I'm interested to see how much power it draws and move it over to my electric socket. So here goes, let's plug it in and see what we get. Might also help if I switch it on at the physical switch. Half a watt, pretty good at the moment. We'll see whether it goes up. Can't quite tell if that's 1.5 watts. I think that may have been, yeah, 2.5 watts now. It's booting up. There we go, 2 watts, and I presume that's now in its standard functional mode. So I'll now move on to the computer and have a look at the web interface. So here goes, I've now moved on to my computer, and I have no network cables plugged in at the moment. I shall plug the Ethernet adapter of my computer into the LAN port of the router. The LAN light has lit up green, and my computer has got an IP address in the default range, which is indeed written on the side of the box as well. So now let's go and have a look at the web interface of this router. Ooh, That's an interesting log-on screen. So going by what was on the back of the router, admin and admin. Oh, it's like they've tried to copy Windows 10. That's beautiful. Ooh. That is quite something. So in its default mode, it's in routing mode, and the WAN status is just looks like it's a standard Ethernet DHCP service. Let's go. Oh my goodness! If it stops twiddling all these icons. And do they change? No, they just do that and don't change any of the wording on them or anything. That is ridiculous. So click on router. Excellent. It does support PPPoE, so that will work with a lot of cable providers, and certainly in the UK, the FTTC or BT Infinity style connection. And the wireless name, wireless N. Disappointingly, security mode is off by default, and it's broadcasting, it's Wi-Fi, and it is open as well. So by default, these things in their factory mode don't have any security. The username and password for the admin interface is just admin, and the wireless is just open as well. If you didn't notice it, the IP address it's on by default is 192.168.10.253. I'm going to give this a password. Save and reboot. Let's see how quickly it reboots then. Save and reboot. So the ping drop to the LAN address was minimal. Not sure whether it was back immediately or whether if I'd manually refreshed it that wouldn't have worked, but it did take a much longer time with the progress bar on the screen. These little twiddling signs are ridiculous. So these buttons seem to run through little wizards for setting up the device. You've got router mode, access point mode, wireless ISP mode. In wireless ISP mode, that would use the Wi-Fi aerials as the WAN side, and will use the two ports on the underside as the LAN side, and wireless repeating mode as well. Wireless basic settings gives you a weird inline tiny box where you can type in the wireless name and set a password. The WAN basic settings lets you set static IP address, DHCP client, PPPoE or PPTP, which is a point-to-point tunneling protocol. You can also set attain, don't know whether that's supposed to be attain or obtain, DNS automatically, or you could use static DNS and set OpenDNS or Google or 1.1.1.1, etc. I see this panel actually does flip between LAN settings and WAN basic settings. What a confusing interface. So I'm going to click on administrate, and then it's missing out the on. Excellent, we can change the password, so I'm going to do admin, change that to something else. If I log out, let's just check that it has actually changed it. Excellent. Time zone can do NTP, which is good. While we're here, actually, let's plug this into my network. So I've got an internet connection. So that's now plugged in. Click on home page. Hopefully here, that will update with an IP address. Taking a very long time. Normally other stuff doesn't take that long. There we go. So So now if we go into the time zone, it'd be interesting to see, no, it hasn't, well, I see DHCP, NTP is off by default. So I'm going to set the time zone to London, enable the NTP client, and automatically adjust daylight savings. I'm going to select manual setting for this and use uk.pool.ntp.org for the UK set of NTP servers or time servers. Oh, okay, has to be an IP address, which is a bit annoying, so let's just pick one of those. It can't handle the time change, it seems, because it's immediately logged me out, probably because it's gone from being what it thinks is 2013 all the way up to 2019. On logon there, it gave me a corrupt page, and I had to click on F5 or refresh. Cool, yeah, it's all over the place now. There we go, 2019, and today's date, and the correct time. Back up and reset. We've got save settings to a file. Let's see whether it gives a human readable file or not. So the settings file is not just plain text. It might be easy to read if somebody had or went through that and looked binary wise, but it's not just easily human editable. And firmware upgrade, although I've got next to no idea, might say in the manual, but I've got no idea where you might get the firmware from. Let's have a quick look and see if the manual does say anything. Nope, there's no website or support address on the manual. There's also some inconsistencies as well, because the manual says to reset it you need to press the reset button inside the tiny hole, when on this one the reset button's actually just a button on the side of the device. And it says also hold the reset button on the rear of the panel, when again it's on the side rather than the rear. So not entirely sure what manual what device that manual's for. So what other things do we have? LAN settings on the basic screen. So you can enable whether it's a DHCP server or not, or whether it's a client, although I'm not really sure how much use that will be. And you can enable spanning tree protocol as well. Let's go to the advanced section down at the bottom. Oh, change colours as well. Oh, that's stunning. Oh. the most pointless option in a router ever. So the advanced screen gives you pretty much the same summary. It does let you turn on WAN ping and all sorts of other things, which is quite good. So UPnP is off by default, which is an interesting choice, the more secure choice. Enable VPN pass-throughs, and if it's me, I'd definitely use WAN ping to monitor my connections uptime, so I would enable that. Enable the web server on the WAN. It's not a great idea on a device like this, but if you needed to do WAN administration, you could do. Doesn't let you change the port though, it looks like. Does it actually reboot? Okay, it's one of these routers, I think, where every single change reboots the router, which is a bit frustrating. Now let's come back, let's force that to load. Okay, it does come back fairly quickly, so you've only got maybe 3 or 4 seconds while it's unavailable. So back to there. You can assign static DHCP addresses to devices on your network and look at the DHCP leases which have been assigned by the router. Let's go to wireless. You can switch off Wi-Fi and the different types of access point mode. Change the wireless name, channel width, set it on a specific channel. A bit bizarrely, you can't set... Oh, there we go, I was going to say you couldn't set the entire range, but it's because it's on 40 megahertz channel width. There won't be any active clients because I haven't connected anything to it yet. Wireless security. Supports radius, which is quite unusual as well, I'd say, for a router of this caliber. Under the advanced section, lots of stuff that you probably shouldn't change unless you know what you're doing. That's quite an unusual option to have in a router, to modify the output power. Access control, MAC address, whitelisting or blacklisting. Not a very secure way to keep your network secure, so unless you know that you want to use that function, I wouldn't use it. Oh, that's quite a good idea. Wireless scheduling, so if you had this in, say, a public space and you didn't want people to use it outside of certain hours, that's quite a good idea. You could switch the Wi-Fi off automatically, or I guess if you had kids that you wanted to not use the internet at certain times, that's quite a good idea. WDS mode for wireless, and wireless protected, or Wi-Fi protected setup for devices like printers where you can't type in a password. Although it looks like it's PIN. Okay, yeah, it's PIN enabled in the web interface, and then you've obviously got the WPS button on the front of the router for the push button mode. Port filtering. Doesn't say whether that's an allow list or a deny list, but interesting function again. IP address filtering, again, doesn't say whether that's a whitelist or a blacklist or an allow list or a deny list. MAC address filtering, which is like the same one under Wi-Fi, but should also apply to Ethernet or wired clients. URL filtering, can't imagine that's going to be very efficient or effective these days with HTTPS being used all over the place. Port forwarding. It doesn't do port translation, but it can do port forwarding. And DMZ. In advanced, we've got DynDNS. Excellent. So DynDNS is not free. TZO, I believe, is possibly the same company. I don't think it's free, and No IP at the moment still is free. So I'm glad they do support No IP there. QoS, so quality of service. Quite an interesting feature again for a router of this caliber. So enable QoS, set your link speed, and you can restrict certain computers or MAC addresses to have less bandwidth than other machines on the network. And then we're back to the status screen, so that's basically it. Let's go back to this horrendous looking screen. Okay, I've put the router now into access point mode, and I'm going to see whether I can factory reset it back to basic settings. Looks like there isn't a way to do it through the web interface. So let's hold down the button on the side of the router and see how long you have to hold it down for it to go back to its factory settings. So let's bring up the ping. I'm going to just tap the button and let go, which has done absolutely nothing. So next thing, I'm going to hold it down for about 1 second and let go. And has also done nothing. Let's hold it down for 5 seconds. That also does nothing. So I'm going to hold it down until something happens, like some of the lights blink. The WPS light has come on. And it's now ready to use again. Is it back to factory settings? Yes, it is. So for the factory reset on that device, you hold down the reset button on the side of the device, and then after that, the WPS light comes on, then the WPS light goes off, the WAN light comes on, the pings drop, and then it reboots. So And for those of you who are interested about energy consumption, in access point mode with a computer plugged into it, it was using 2.5 watts, and if I plug the WAN into it as well, it goes up to 3 watts of energy on a 240 volt mains service. Hopefully this video has been interesting to you and possibly helpful. If it has, it would be really helpful to me if you wouldn't mind subscribing to my YouTube channel. You don't need to have the video notifications switched on, but the subscriber count really helps. Thank you very much.